Good morning, everyone. It's Thursday, December 17th. From the San Antonio Express News, my name is Luis Vasquez, and this is your Express Briefing. All of the stories you need to know to start your day. You can expect sunny skies and a high of 63 degrees in San Antonio today. After months of stalemate, congressional leaders are getting closer to cementing a roughly $900 billion stimulus deal to deliver emergency aid to individuals and companies devastated by the toll of the pandemic, racing to finish the details and stave off a government shutdown. The Spurs are betting on carryover from last season to push them into playoff contention, but for various reasons, that familiarity hasn't been evident so far. The Silver and Black play their final preseason game tonight in Houston. And now let's move on to our top stories for the day. The family of Fernando Macias, the mentally ill 61-year-old man who died in the downtown jail 2 years ago, has filed a wrongful death lawsuit against the Bexar County Sheriff's Office and University Hospital System. Macias was jailed in March of 2018 after he shot at a sheriff's deputy trying to detain him under a mental health warrant, leading to a 24-hour standoff. That ended in his arrest and the death of his mother, who was in the house and was accidentally shot by state SWAT officers. The lawsuit alleges that doctors, nurses, and sheriff's deputies allowed Macias' health to deteriorate over the span of 9 months. By the time he died, Macias had lost more than 100 pounds and developed bed sores, the lawsuit states. Emily Eaton has more in her latest story over at expressnews.com. The grinning, vibrant piñatas that welcome visitors to Ana Reyes' party goods store on Commerce Street, Piñata Time, belie a harsh reality for piñata makers in San Antonio. It's been a rough year. With Fiesta canceled, children's birthday parties called off, and government officials pleading with residents to stay home during normally festive holidays, the pandemic presented a noxious brew for piñateros in town. "I'm hoping that when everything is over," Reyes said, "we're all going to throw big parties." But more than 9 months after the coronavirus began spreading in San Antonio, Reyes and others said there's little they can do for now beyond wait the pandemic out. In a letter to his flock, Gustavo Garcia Siller attempted to clear up misinformation about the Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines as part of a national effort urging Catholics to be vaccinated to protect others. "The fact is, many people have died and more people will die," Garcia Siller told the Express News. "Science has come up with these vaccines and we're saying they're okay to be used. People should be confident in being vaccinated. The Archbishop's directive is part of a global push by church leaders to encourage Catholics to protect themselves and others against the virus, and quash false rumors circulated by some of their members." Columnist Elena Ayala writes, quote, "The U.S. Senate's failure to approve a bill creating the National Museum of the American Latino has Henry Munoz reeling. The effort to add a Latino museum to the Smithsonian's other showpieces on the National Mall has been 3 decades in the making, and this year the goal seemed tantalizingly within reach. If the legislation had passed, it would have set off decades of planning and fundraising, which had Munoz hoping he'd still be alive to see the end result. At year's end and during such a trying year, that's where minds go." Elena Ayala explains who quashed the bill and what it means to 2 San Antonians who played key roles in the decades-long push for a National Museum of the American Latino. Head over to expressnews.com to check out our daily updates on the COVID-19 vaccine in San Antonio, from who gets the first doses to when we can expect a widespread rollout. Next up are your need-to-know headlines. You can find all of these headlines and more inside of your Express News subscription. In a worsening surge, about 92% of coronavirus infections in San Antonio are being transmitted through close contacts. A red flag as Christmas and New Year's Eve approach, officials said Wednesday. University health officials have approved spending an extra $300,000 annually to help reduce unnecessary emergency room visits and provide better access to healthcare for people who are homeless or mentally ill. Hundreds of veterans have signed a letter calling on U.S. Representative Dan Crenshaw to resign after a government watchdog expert linked the Texas Republican to attempts by Veterans Affairs officials to discredit a woman who reported sexual assault at a VA hospital. Texas is leading a multi-state coalition that filed an antitrust suit Wednesday in federal court against Google, claiming the company has a $1 trillion monopoly on online display advertising. A student fighting disciplinary action for allegedly hosting an off-campus fraternity party during the pandemic didn't get a sympathy ear from a judge. The Via Metropolitan Transit Board of Trustees unanimously elected Fernando Reyes as its new chair to lead the group through December 2022. Toyota's $391 million expansion of the company's Southside plant is still on track in spite of the pandemic, according to company officials on Wednesday. U.S. Army North said Wednesday it was deploying military medical personnel to battle the coronavirus pandemic in the Navajo Nation in New Mexico. Local developer Weston Urban's plans for a 32-story tower atop a parking lot in downtown San Antonio won initial approval from a city panel Wednesday. The project will include 351 residential units, about 7,250 square feet of ground floor retail, and 456 parking spaces. Ron Robinson, CEO of Seguin-based Alamo Group, has announced he plans to retire from the company, likely midway through 2021. Taking on the fight for Georgia Republicans, in the role of sort of a political superhero, U.S. Representative Dan Crenshaw released a new political ad this week that takes aim at far-left activists attempting to gain full and total control of the U.S. government. UCO Inc., a San Antonio-based provider of electronic payment processing services, announced it had acquired the assets of Information Management Solutions LLC. UCO expects the transaction will add more than $13 million in annual revenue to its business. Unless you know someone really well and discuss the potential gift idea in advance, not everyone is ready for the surprise or the financial obligation that comes with having a pet, writes Kathy M. Rosenthal in this week's Animal Matters column. The long and troubled relationship between Harlandale ISD and Jasmine Engineering is finally over, writes the Express News editorial board. Read the latest editorial for more on the $700,000 divorce. Southside's Micah Young joins a growing San Antonio contingent in Wyoming. Young will be the third area player on the Cowboys roster, joining former Smithson Valley quarterback Levi Williams and former Wagner receiver Josh Cobbs. Young said he and Cobbs played on the same club 7-on-7 team before Cobb headed up for his freshman season. Young is believed to be only the second football player from Southside to sign with an FBS Division I school. Offensive lineman Clancy Pearson signed with Rice in 1979. The start of the early signing period saw plenty of local high school athletes sign national letters of intent with UTSA, Texas State, and UIW's football programs. We have a slideshow over at expressnews.com to see a roundup of all the local high school athletes that have committed to a college so far. Our taste team has compiled the 12 best recipes from 2020 over at expressnews.com. From Instapot carne guisada to make-at-home pastrami and lemon icebox pie, you won't want to miss this. Chris Hill, the owner of the iconic Esquire Tavern, is set to open a new combination tiki bar and Vietnamese restaurant just down the block from the Esquire inside the downtown San Antonio Whitty building in early 2021. There's a fun new way to shake up your cocktail routine, and it's made right here in San Antonio. Bear Tonics bottles a variety of tonic syrups flavored with quinine, among other fruits, spices, and botanicals that give each sip a distinctive South Texas flair. As the second week of the UIL's Class 6A and 5A postseason approaches, several interesting storylines have emerged. Express News staff writer David Hinojosa provides some things to watch for this week. And that's all for today. This was your Express briefing for Thursday, December 17th. My name is Luis Vasquez. Please consider becoming an Express News subscriber to get in-depth coverage on all the stories you heard today. Also, be sure to rate and review this podcast inside of your Apple Podcast app, as it really helps the show. Have a wonderful day, everyone.